a lot of people will throw out the statement of grading is subjective. The analogy I always use is that in baseball, there's a strike zone and umpires have sort of subjective biases of what they consider strikes or balls. Is that similar? Is that fair to say that that's what CGC has, as far as like you guys have a strike zone, but maybe each grader sort of has their own tendencies and subjective lens in which they see books?
Absolutely. Yeah. They have, and that's why it's important to have the team grading together to round off those edges, because if you just have this person or that person, looking at an A of 15, I mean, it's not, they're not going to go too far off the reservation, because obviously we've, the guys looking at that book are, world-class grading experts, but the truth is that, yes, it is subjective. But there is a strike zone, and there are times where, often that, let's say 4 of us look at a book and we're all at the same grade and there's no argument. And then, other times, 1 or 2 of us are off, but usually it's not off more, up 1 or down 1. Usually it's one direction or the other. Usually it's between 2 grades. And it's really amazes me because because of its subjectivity and because of the, infinite combinations of defects, particularly with mid and low grade books and older books. The ability for a group of people to get together and arrive at a grade, independently, the same grade, or at least within 2 grades, over and over again every day it's kind of shocking when you think about it, because how does this happen when you could show that book to people on the street, 2 copies, and you would get 2 wildly different answers. How did we get here? And, it really is just a simple matter of having standards in place and doing it over and over and over again for, all these years. And it really works. It actually, you really develop a sense, even with the subjectivity factored in, you develop a sense where sometimes the grade just jumps out at you, or you get there pretty quickly. And that's from looking at, so many copies of, A of 15, FF1, all these books, even the newer books that come through. And so there's a strike zone where, we, sometimes a book, and it's easier too sometimes with particular defects. So, I can't give all the credit to the graders. Sometimes a book is very easy to grade because it has one particular defect that's easily quantifiable and defined. Like, for instance, a high grade book with a subscription crease with the front cover that breaks color. I mean, that's, generally a 5.5. A split spine on a book's a 1.8. If they tape it, it's a 1.5. So books like that are just easy. They're just really, you still have to count the pages and check for restoration, all that. But some of them are just no-brainers, and you can fly right through it. And then obviously there are books that, there are times where we are very much in disagreement over the grade of a book, and we have to stop and have a discussion about it. But those tend to be more books that have anomalies on them, or maybe they have a lot of restoration or some other weird things going on that maybe we don't see that often, and so we don't have that mental database of this particular defect to be able to recall and go, it's this grade,
right?
So it's but there's the subjectivity is certainly always going to be there, because at the end of the day, we're looking at so many different books with so many different defects, and we do the best we can to get it right.
Right.
As the saying goes, give it the highest grade possible without being wrong.
Right. Speaking of that, can you help? Let's dispel the myth right here, right now. Everyone always talks about 9.8's cannot have spine ticks. I've even heard that in some rare instances, I think maybe if I'm misquoting you, forgive me, I feel like I've heard you say that a 9.9 could have a spine tick. Mm-hmm. Is this within the subjectivity of how the spine tick exists within relation to the book, where it is on the book, how it compares to the colors of the book? Can you talk about, let's talk about that specific example, the one spine tick and the grade.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is discussed in the grading guide. And, the grading guide is really just it's a foundation that provides tools to learn how to grade, but ultimately people have to go out and grade books to build that experience. But in the back of the book, there's the Hulk 181 that's broken down from 10.0 down to 0.5, or actually no grade. And it goes into what's allowable in each of those grade categories in terms of defects. Now, obviously the number of defects expands as the grades go down, but there are a few. I think there's a few listed 9.8, probably several. And then that number gets smaller for 9.9 and 10, but they're there. But they're exclusive of each other in that grade range. And so, you'll read it and say, well, 9.9 can have this or this or this or this or this, but they have to be exclusive. They cannot all exist on that book at the same time. So that's one point. The other point is, its location. It's like the stress line, the size of it, does it break color, and how the rest of the book looks. So less of an issue on modern, because that takes factors out like page quality, fading, gloss, ink reflectivity, the staples. There's all these aging issues and handling issues that are not usually a factor in newer comics. So it really comes down to printing defects and whatever handling wear there might be that's present. So now printing defects are usually one of the main things that keeps a book out of a 9.9 or a 10. But when it comes to handling defects, a stress line is going to be the most common defect that's going to bring a book down. But it has to be an either or. You can't have a book with a printing defect and a stress line get, a 9.9 or a 10. Usually it's one or the other. And it depends on what the printing defect is as well. Some defects are severe enough to bring it down even further, right? 6.94 or even lower. But assuming the book is completely free of any defect, anything else wrong with it, it's perfect in every way. 9.9 can have one little stress line that breaks color, very, very tiny. And a 9.8, I believe 9.8 can have two. And obviously 10 can't have any.
Right.
So, but then, we get into minutia here, because you can hold a comic book up in the light. And this is one of the problems in a holder, is that you don't have a chance to hold it, first off. And then the second thing is that obviously you're looking at it through 2 layers of plastic, so you can't, but tilting the book in the light is really important because it shows a lot of defects that you can't see otherwise face on. And so there are times where you can hold a book up and look at the spine, like a high grade book, and you'll see like little tiny, I'll call them stress lines, but they're just more like little indentions, maybe just where the book slightly curled, and they cause a couple little bends, but they don't break color, and they're pretty much imperceptible. So we actually, would allow a little bit of that going on in a 9.9 as well. And so, again, we're getting into the nuances, the subtleties of, what is allowed in that 9.9 range. And truthfully, when you're talking about spine stress lines, I could break that down into, many different groups. It really boils down to what's in front of us at that time,
Right.
and the wow factor. You get the book in front of you and you're like, wow, this book is spectacular, but it's got this one little thing. But wow, could we see this in a 9.9? I mean, really, we're asking ourselves that question, like the giant size one. We're comparing it to all the other copies we saw, and we're like, this copy is stunning. It's like literally the best copy we've ever seen. And another thing is, you say the ones that pop. We oftentimes will see, particularly in Silver Age, Golden Age as well. Those, you pull an X-Men one. Or Avengers one, like the Marvel keys especially, or really any books from that era, but the keys especially, the ink reflectivity is a big one, because those who have seen enough copies, like Avengers one, they have varying degrees of red that kind of look more reddish or more orangish, the green, the deepness of that green on Loki, and then every once in a while we'll come across a copy where it's just like blindingly. The colors are so vibrant that it almost looks better than when it was printed. Because we just don't see them that often look like that. And so in those situations, aesthetically, those books to me are superior, at least in appearance, than, other copies around it. But then you get into, the other defects, and inevitably it ends up getting the grade that it gets. But to my point, it's just that there are certainly books, certainly on the vintage side, that do stand out, that have that wow factor, that just blow our socks off when we pull it out and see it for the first time. So that's definitely a thing.